Welcome to the Ringer WNBA show. I'm Seerat Sohi. I am joined by Sabrina Merchant of The Athletic, and we are so close to regular season WNBA basketball. The WNBA's 30th season tipping off in, if you're listening to this, probably 24 hours or less. I can't believe we actually made it here. I feel like we were it was just a bunch of different forces going against this actually happening. You also get to the place where you talk about the start of the season so much that it almost kind of feels surreal that we're actually here. Sabrina, how are you feeling? Are you excited?
I'm stoked. I mean, I feel like the minute the WNBA announced its schedule in a very passive-aggressive, hey, we're going to get a deal done mode, that they had Dallas, Indiana on the first weekend was a real clear indicator of, we have to get games on, May 9th. So by hook or by crook, we got to this point. We're here. Lots of fun stuff happening this weekend. Lots of fun stuff happening for hopefully the next 4 months. But yeah,
they
excited.
Really launched that grenade straight into the players' union's laps. Hey, we're going to give you the opening slate that everybody has been wanting. You have the Aces playing the Sparks. You have the Valkyrie. The Valkyries are playing the Storm, which actually wasn't going to be a game that you would think had any heat before the season started, but now it is officially the Flau'jae Johnson
the Valkyries
Bowl.
play the Mercury after that. Home of Marta Suarez.
Oh, man. Sometimes the basketball gods just give with both hands, don't they? Where do you want to start? You want to start with Fever Wings? We could talk some MVP and get into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen a game with the last 4 number 1 picks on the court at the same time. So It's pretty cool.
It is. I hadn't even considered that until right now, which I should have, because I actually think the ESPN talked about that when they played against each other in the preseason. So that's my bad. But yeah, let's talk some MVP. That's part of the reason I brought you on. This is one of the last predictions that I haven't done yet. We did 3 episodes of Power Rankings. We talk a little bit of Rookie of the Year. Today we'll talk MVP, Coach of the Year, talk about some of these games. Shockingly, my favorite for MVP is the player who's won 4 times and is currently the odds-on favorite and is probably the best living basketball player on earth, perhaps the best women's basketball player of all time. And you can actually take the perhaps out of that in A'ja Wilson. Holds 3 of the top 5 PER seasons of all time leading scoring season per game in 2024, won 3 of the last 4 championships. You can stop me anytime because we could just do this for the entire episode. But at this point, I'm going against the grain of wanting to go in the direction of novelty, because I think that A'ja Wilson is just she's in a league of her own. She's in a league of her own. She's better than everybody else. And I really want to plant my flag on this before the season starts, because I have watched in the NBA the greatest player of all time lose out on MVP awards because people get sick of watching greatness. The media gets sick of talking about the same storyline over and over again. And if you go back in history with a lot of different sports, this happens all the time. Oh, there's MVP fatigue, voter fatigue. I'm not going to be in the business of getting sick of knowing that I'm watching the best player of all time play in her prime, heading into her 29th year on Earth, which is when your athletic skills, your basketball ability, your skill refinement, and your cognitive ability all collide. I think A'ja Wilson is going to give us a season for the ages. I think she's going to give us something that makes it even hard to deny that she would end up being the MVP.
I wish I had something to disagree with you on, but she is also my pick for MVP. And my only real concern is voter fatigue, because, LeBron James never won 3 MVPs in a row. We had a weird Nikola Jokic thing with 3 MVPs in a row on the NBA side. That didn't happen. No WNBA player has ever won 3 in a row, though unfortunately I'm not entirely well-versed enough in the early years of the W to know if that's a travesty or not. But yeah, I think it's going to be hard for Asia to get there because people like a narrative. They like a story. And I think being the greatest player of all time and showcasing that dominance on a night-to-night basis, pretty damn good story. But apparently it gets boring for some people. So yeah, I think the fact that like the Aces have kept the band together, that they, come in as the overwhelming favorites, or maybe not the overwhelming favorites, I don't know, but that they come in with the same team that just swept through the finals. Maybe it's going to make what A'ja Wilson does look less impressive because, hey, you have a team that has already won 3 of the last 4 titles. But no, I think she is the greatest player alive. I don't think we need any qualifiers there. And if she does what she is capable of doing, if she plays like at least 38 of the 44 games, I see no reason why that wouldn't be an MVP worthy season.
Yeah, the Aces are actually second favorites. The Liberty are the favorites, and
that's East Coast bias. Goodness gracious.
Well, it's like every year we look at this Liberty roster on paper because they're stacked with talent, and we tell ourselves that they're unbeatable because how could you possibly be a team that has a big 3 and has also signed Satu Sabli, or last year it was Emma Miesemann. But somehow they managed to find a way to beat themselves. I do think that this is the final year that happens. We'll talk about that more when we talk about Coach of the Year, little teaser there. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of strange that the team that won 3 of the last 4 titles is not a title favorite. Maybe that works in Asia's favor. And I do think that when you talk about what we can talk is perhaps the kind of season that A'ja will have, the ways in which she will dominate, because every year she brings something new to the table. In the past few years, it's been her playmaking. She was a 42% shooter from 3 on low volume last season as well. If she starts taking more 3s, how does that open the floor up for her? Does Becky Hammond start to, generate more plays for her from the 3-point line? Does that allow her to get to the free throw line even more than she already does, especially with, it seems like refereeing this year is going to be coded more towards offensive players. So I think A'ja Wilson will definitely be one of the winners of that. But a lot of it will come down to her teammates. She has this ability to just sort of mold into what the team needs on and off the floor, right? Like if she's getting triple teamed all over the place, she can find a Jewel Lloyd, she can find a Chelsea Gray, she can find a Jackie Young. That's always been the Aces formula, right? Like use Asia's gravity to try to create 3-point shots. So a lot of it will come down to also how defenses choose to cover her. Do they want it under any circumstances to let her beat them single coverage? Because I mean, the dirty little secret with doubling A'ja is it just doesn't make a difference. Like think about the signature shot of her career, right? Like it was
very late double. I don't really think it mattered all that much.
It was a late double, and it was, this is me playing into the narrative a little bit too much, I guess. It was a late double against players that were shorter than her. We have seen some players be able to do a pretty good job of defending her, but they are few and far between. And I am just generally interested in seeing what this iteration of the Aces look like. Are they going to be the team that's closer to 500, or are they going to be the team that ripped off 16 straight wins and won a title?
Yeah, I do think what's interesting about the Aces is because of how thoroughly they dominated the finals, we've kind of forgotten all of the hiccups that came until that point. Like they were under 500 at a very late point of the season. They did almost get knocked out in the first round. They did almost get knocked out in the second round by an Indiana Fever team that was struggling to put bodies onto the court. Like Kelsey Mitchell fell just like to the floor during that game, like gave everything she had.
She hit 0. She actually hit 0%.
Literally what the Fever were working with. So the fact that they dispatched the Mercury so easily, I think kind of colors our minds of like, oh, they were just the best team in the league convincingly last year. And though I do think they are going to be this year, I'm not sure that it's entirely true because of all of the struggles they had during the regular season, all of the difficulties they had during the postseason. But it almost like adds more fuel to A'ja Wilson's fire, which I feel like is never a good thing for opponents, right? Like when A'ja Wilson feels like she has a score to settle, that is the most dangerous version of A'ja Wilson. And she literally said during her media day, she exists to make people mad. She likes proving people wrong. And that is quite the thing to just put out there, you know, especially after you're coming off of a MVP, co-defensive player of the year, finals MVP season. when she just like hibernates basically for 6 months while everyone gets to talk about like, oh, look how much fun these people are having at Unrivaled. And don't we love this combination? And hey, USA basketball. And Asia's just minding her business, you know, getting back in the lab, adding little things to her game. So yeah, I think I would expect to see a very different version of the Aces. Whether that means that we still see the same box score level stuffing for A'ja Wilson is a different question, but she's going to be what I expect, the best player on the best team, and that's usually a good MVP formula.
Yeah. It does add a level of intrigue to the Aces season to go into it not knowing which version of them that you're going to get. And they have players like a Chelsea Gray who seems very motivated to win a title. She is talking about cementing the dynasty. She name-checked Rebecca Brunson, who is the only player in the WNBA who has more rings than her. But she is a little bit older now, and we've seen her not necessarily be able to keep the same consistency through the course of the regular season, which was an Aces issue at large. They also added Kennedy Carter, who is just could be the best thing that happened in the world or the worst thing.
Pretty much definition of uncertainty in a person right there.
The volatility is incredibly high. The upside is incredibly high. But so is the downside. I'm rooting for her. And I think the WNBA is a more entertaining league when Kennedy Carter is in it. But there's certainly a question mark. There's, for 2 years in a row now, a bet on their culture as well. Bringing in Jewel Lloyd last year after Seattle, the way things ended there, her having, you know, finishing the season on the bench to then going to the Aces and becoming a real contributor and willing to come off of the bench. And they also added Janiyah Barker as well. So Becky's willing to do this, right? She's basically willing to take like Nalissa Smith also, like, you know, with the fever in the wings, on and off the court, there were certainly moments that were questionable with her. Nothing with her really added up to the level of anything with Kennedy. However, still a bet, and she's kind of just like, she's like the Statue of Liberty. She's like, I will take your, I don't know the quote, but like,
you're not American. It's okay.
I'm not American, so it's fine. It's fine. And they're willing to do like they're willing to do things like that. But they're not the best front runners historically, right?
I don't know. 2023, I feel like they carried it quite well.
They did the Aces over everybody. Like they still had this chip on their shoulder. Now that everybody just unanimously agrees.
Apparently Vegas does not believe in them. I shouldn't say Vegas. I should say the odds
Vegas
makers
doesn't believe the odds makers. Like, the odds makers don't really exist in Vegas as much anymore, as much as they're an amorphous, omniscient part of our lives. But yeah, you're right. Vegas doesn't believe in Vegas. Maybe that can be their bulletin board material.
They always find something. One of the things that they do invest in, if not more front office personnel, is storytelling. That is a key part of the Vegas myth making.
This is true.
You can be sure that they will have a theme, a narrative that works for them.
Okay, if you're Vegas, what is on your bulletin board right now? Let's make up some slights for them.
Let's see. That A'ja Wilson was a co-defensive player of the year.
Yes.
That's number one.
Yeah.
Other slights.
You can say that
probably that like Becky finished second in like the best coach in the GM survey.
Yes. And is like pretty low for odds makers on winning coach of the year as well.
The best coaches never win coach of the year. Like it's a stupid award. I'm not
that's
on like
so
Team
true.
Joe Mazzulla or anything, but like,
oh my God, that's so true. No, I've actually never thought of this. Coach of the year literally always goes to the coach that has like the most like Thomas the Train and like the little engine that could. It's never the team. Like it's like it should. If coach of the year would then always just go to the same coaches. Like historically in sports,
doesn't MVP always go to the same people? So,
it doesn't
really
though. It should. It should, but it doesn't.
There is a smaller pool of people who win MVP than there is that win coach of the year.
This is true. This is true. Becky Hammond should. She's definitely on my list of like. She's a dark horse coach of the how. She's a dark horse candidate
because
for coach
no
of the
one
year.
is going to be impressed with what she is able to do with the Aces this year.
And I think
that's a stupid reason.
That's a
honestly.
damn shame because this team doesn't necessarily like.
That's number 2 on the bulletin board, and I think like the third one would just be like. We can prove that Kennedy Carter and Janiyah Barker, most of Kennedy, I'm not sure how much Janiyah is factoring into this actual season, but we can prove that Kennedy Carter is a winning player, right? Like that's bulletin board material there.
It is good to bring in, I think, fresh blood that has something to prove when you've won a title before. I do think that like Jewel Lloyd in particular added an
the refresh
edge.
helps. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to have players with something to prove that have an edge. Cheyenne Parker-Tyus also coming back from her pregnancy as well is another player that, like, of course she was part of that title. Like, you know, sometimes you're like in the title run, but you're not of the title run.
I mean, she has a real role here. Like, there's
Yeah.
no more Kia Stokes, no more Megan Gustafson. Bree Turner, yeah, she's a backup center, but like, if you want an offensive backup center, that's only CPT here.
Exactly.
So there's a real role. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Here's a player who I actually think has some reason to feel slighted, and I think it's weird to say about it because she's still the most remarked upon and like popular player in the WNBA, but Caitlin Clark has become somewhat of an afterthought. Last year, she was voted by 50% of GMs that if you were starting a franchise today, you would start it with Caitlin Clark. Now, a lot of those GMs have moved on to Paige Beckers, and Paige Beckers, also rightfully so. I mean, I'm on very much on the Paige Beckers Dallas Wings hype train myself, but she has sort of overtaken the way we were talking about the Fever last year is very much the way that we're talking about Dallas. Like, Arike back, she's like the Kelsey Mitchell. They have this huge free agency. They bring in, quote unquote, the right free agents. And now all of a sudden, it's all sort of about Paige now. And, you know, you have to sort of temper with that with the fact that ultimately, like, people are thinking and talking about Caitlin all the time. But it does feel a little bit different. It's strange. The Fever are kind of flying about as under the radar as a Caitlin Clark team ever possibly could, I guess.
I think the parallels with their college career is so interesting because Paige was all anybody could talk about when she got to college, right? The next great UConn player, you know, the next cog in the, what's the word I'm looking for? Like
machine, wheel.
Assembly line. That's the word I'm looking for.
A cog can actually be part of anything. That's a beautiful part of that word. That's why I like using it in my writing so much.
And, you know, she was all, you know, the national media could talk about her first couple seasons. She gets injured and Caitlin just assumes that vacuum of the spotlight. And I think that's what we saw last year where Caitlin got hurt. Now Paige is back in her, what she would consider the rightful spot atop of Caitlin in the hierarchy. And I think it's fascinating because, yeah, they're separate draft classes, but they were the same high school class, right? Like, I really think we should think of them as belonging on the same schedule in their WNBA career. Because, like, if anything, Paige is a few months older than Caitlin. So I like that there's been this back and forth because of, you know, how they came into college. Their careers have intersected with each other at so many points, whether that was their 2 NCAA tournament appearances or time spent in USA basketball at the junior levels. Now, like, they both get their own number one pick. They're both trying to revitalize these markets. I think it's great. I do think it's really funny just how quickly the shine came off of Indiana, though, especially when they just ended a season where they arguably exceeded any possible expectations, right? For that team to lose all of its like collective glow is very interesting to me.
Yeah, especially after bringing back their big three. And, you know, I have some questions about, I think they indexed on fit more than talent this year. And I think that they are kind of emphasizing a play style that is more attuned to kind of what Caitlin was doing in Iowa. You draft Raven Johnson that allows her to play off the ball more. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I do really like the point that you made about this sort of reversal and the way that these two have always been in conversation with each other, right? Their play style as well. They are very much foils for each other. And you can kind of see it, like when I was thinking about the GM survey, the more I started thinking about it, I was like, well, this actually kind of makes sense because Paige has so much technical proficiency. She is kind of a coach's dream. She's always going to make the right play. She can score from anywhere on the floor. It opens up her game to be able to do a ton of different things because she just has so much predictability in what she does. And I think when you add that with her selflessness, her IQ, the fact that like other players really seem drawn to her as well, you could understand why she would be like a coach's dream. And she has always been like the insider's pick, right? Like she was anointed at UConn and she has lived up to it. I don't want to make it seem like she hasn't.
Reason.
Like
yes.
She's every once in a while, the industry plant is like the right choice, right? But then you have this player in Caitlin who just uprooted all of that. And she's changing the way the game is played entirely. She's a risk taker. She's a type of player that makes coaches probably a little bit nervous. If you want to do a good job of coaching her, you have to have a strong stomach in order to allow her to actually be herself and take those risks, take those logo threes, take those those full court passes and things like that. So I celebrate both. Like, I am such a huge fan of both of the way that they play and the way that they approach the game, because they ultimately kind of want to do the same thing. They're both like very unselfish players who I would imagine if they were like watching a basketball game, they would like and dislike the same things, but stylistically they are so different. And I like that the WNBA made this sort of like the marquee matchup to open up the weekend, because it will be very basketball focused in its rivalry, and allow us to have conversations like this. And it's just like there's an organic nature to it. These two have always kind of been circling each other. They've played with each other in like Team USA settings against each other. They had the Final Four matchup. They also played against each other. I believe it was in Caitlin's freshman year as well. So there is
both their freshman years, yeah.
Yeah. So like it's exactly. Both of their freshman years. Like they are very much
they came in together. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
No, I'm excited to very much get into the basketball of it all, because the Wings really dissected the Fever during that preseason. And I don't try to read too much into preseason basketball, but it was not a great look for Indiana's perimeter defense. And admittedly, I don't think Aaliyah Boston was playing in that game, so that changes a lot of what you're able to do there. But I kind of think, like, which is, again, a weird thing to say, like there's some pressure on Indiana to perform early, to like remind everyone that, hey, we are still like this big three. We are still the team that made the semifinals last year. We still have Steph White, one of the best coaches in the WNBA, who's proven herself at this level. So yeah, I think it's an awesome way to start the season. And I hope that this, I'm not going to call it a manufactured rivalry, but like this rivalry that the WNBA is foisting on us works out better than Indiana Chicago did a year ago.
Well, it feels less foisted. Like we can just start there. Like I think that's a big part of it. But there are other interesting matchups in this game as well, to your point. I think it's going to be a really good, interesting test for the Fever's front court. That is the aspect of their roster that I have the most questions about. We saw it without Aaliyah Boston in the preseason. Obviously, Aaliyah Boston in the picture, top 10 player, all WNBA player, changes a lot. However, this is a thin front court. They lose Natasha Howard. They bring in Monique Billings, which I think is a much better on-court fit. They bring back Dantas, who, I don't know, we'll see how much she kind of has left in the tank. And then they bring in Maisha Hines-Allen, who, I don't want to be mean, but Maisha Hines-Allen is kind of who you bring in when you can't get like somebody else. Like for the last few seasons, we've kind of seen, I know there was a time that predates my like watching of WNBA basketball where she was on a title team and was like an important contributor to that, but it does feel like the modern game has passed her by to a degree. The Minnesota Lynx tried to bring her in as their like front court piece off of the bench and ultimately just didn't end up playing her a lot because she couldn't really fit in with the modern style of basketball that they wanted to play. Then you see the same thing sort of happen in Dallas last year as well. Both of those teams, by the way, then they end up bringing in Jessica Shepard. So maybe that's what happens. And down the line, maybe Indiana just brings in Jessica Shepard. But
I'm going to give Maisha a little bit of grace for that Minnesota run, because I don't think they beat Connecticut without her in that semifinal series. So you gotta win that series to get to the finals in the first place. I mean, that was a series that suited her particular skills against that Connecticut team.
Yes, I guess in that, you know what, that's a good point, because I do think that the league, while so much of the league has become more kind of like modern oriented, there are some teams out there that are just going to be able to destroy you with size.
The Smash Mouth helps a little bit in some matchups.
It does. You're right. Like, again, she's going to be important in like an Atlanta Dream matchup. She's going to be important in like in a New York Liberty matchup. She'll be important in this Dallas game. I think, you know what, she might be sort of like outside of like the stars, like kind of the player to watch in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I also think if Maisha Hollins is a next factor for you, you probably don't have enough depth on your roster. So
both things kind of apply. There's pros and cons. Yeah. That is, exactly. Then the other end, I think for Dallas, it's a huge test for their perimeter defense as well. It'll be kind of AZ's first shot at seeing, her ability to hold up. And I think Kelsey Mitchell's, unfortunately, that's definitely like a welcome to the WNBA type of player to have to go against in a moment.
I do have a
like
question
that.
about Dallas for you.
Yeah,
because
sure.
I'm not sure if Jose Fernandez has answered this and I've just missed it. But how would you start their perimeter? Like, who would be your 3 guards in your starting lineup for Dallas?
I mean,
or what do you think they're going to do?
I mean, I think you start with Paige, AZ, and Enrique, and then like you just have to. You can't. I think if you eventually I think maybe you're getting at maybe that's not enough defense that they might have to make a change later.
I also just think Paige. I realize she can do a lot of ball handling. I always feel like she's played better with a true point guard next to her. So I like Odyssey Sims next to her in the starting lineup, even if that means maybe you bench AZ. But yeah, I think it's just. I'm not sure what direction they're going to go because I think the Paige Odyssey combination has worked quite well so far. Again, preseason. I'm not trying to read too much in preseason, but watching Paige historically, I've always liked her next to a traditional like 1.
That's really interesting because I think as much as you definitely want the ball in Paige's hands as much as you possibly can, and to me, she's a point guard. I think both sides of like the CC Paige standum have this like sort of argument where they kind of are low-key shading the other player by being like, oh, well, that player is really a shooting guard. Neither of them are shooting guards. They're both point guards. Let's just get that out of the way. But to your point, and I think this is a point that applies to Caitlin as well, they both are really good at doing things off of the ball. So you do want to have somebody on the court to maximize them that will be able to handle the ball and allow them to play off of it. Like give up the ball so they can get the ball back at some point. Because Paige is one of the best cutters in the league. She's one of the best spot-up players in the league. She is great off of screens. She's also great off of pick and rolls and isolation. So you want to get her like a mixed, a balanced diet of everything. But maybe the onus is a little bit on Enrique because she is more of a primary ball handler who can handle that pressure to become that player. But you can also
I'm interested,
you can hear the lilt in my voice when I say that.
Does this early injury to Enrique, where she didn't play in the preseason, sort of enable Jose to bring her off the bench to start, just to like ease her back in, and then maybe you've settled on something that works going forward? I don't know. She's
playing again. She's playing though, right?
I would assume she's playing, right?
Okay, yeah.
She just hasn't played all preseason.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. It's a good. I mean, I think I remember the Warriors did this with like David Lee got injured in the preseason when Steve Kerr became the coach, and they're like, I guess we'll start Draymond Green, and it's secretly what everybody wanted to see happen. And then then they became a dynasty, and there was no looking back. Like everybody else had to get on board. So I could see him pulling some potential chicanery here, but at the same time, though, Jose has been so open. Like he's been so upfront about Enrique. I want you here. Like she did an interview where she talked about the first time they talked, he was very clear that like her skill set is something that, despite like a narrative to the contrary, is very much what he feels like can fit. And then she did an interview with Unrivaled where she kind of just like had a throwaway line of like, we'll see what happens in the off season. I don't really know where I'm going to end up. He called her after and was like, just to reiterate, we want you here. So I think that he's definitely going to, I imagine he's got some plans for her that we probably haven't seen yet. I imagine he's going to try to give that the old college try. And then we'll see what happens, though. If because of the perimeter defense, because of the you want
that's what makes this matchup
players.
So interesting is because both of these teams, like I would not say perimeter defense is their strong suit, but man, can they score? And
yes,
you also have to try to guard them. So.
Yeah. Well, the Fever have the same sort of dynamic.
Totally. Same dynamic
as well. Like they have,
at least you have Lexi Hull, who's kind of like your de facto stopper. Like if you're playing Paige, AZ, and Enrique, I feel like making AZ your de facto stopper as a rookie is just rude to her.
Well, isn't Paige your de facto stopper?
Are you gonna make her do all of that?
Yeah, I mean that's what Paige does, and that's also why you have two really good perimeter players on offense.
You could say that's what Paige does, but like that's what like KK Arnold was for, and like. Everybody else.
That's true. Like she's okay. Maybe she's not like your de facto stopper, and like, but I do think that there are aspects of defense that she was really good at. Like
I don't want her as like my primary.
She's probably not your isolation defender, but she's probably you're right. Like
I like her quite a bit. Yeah,
I mean they have I mean, AZ's a good off-ball defender too. That is actually the one element that they are missing is like the
that's why I like
isolation.
Odyssey in the
That's a
starting
good
lineup.
point. That's a good point. Yeah. Maybe we see that happen at some point this season. You also have so much rim protection with Jess Shep and Alana Smith that maybe you're just going to funnel people into them and hope you can live with that. Yeah. Indiana has the same issue. I have like with Caitlin. I just wrote about this today. You want to be able to play her on and off the ball. There's this huge sort of argument of, okay, like what's the best way to play and build around Caitlin Clark, right? And for me, it's always been play her on and off the ball. Do the same thing that you kind of want to do with Paige, so you can take advantage of her incredible spot-up shooting ability, her gravity. She is, despite the fact that she hasn't done it a lot in the WNBA, she was a great cutter at Iowa. And you also just want to take the load off of her a little bit too. Now, the argument from Fever fans has always been, well, she did that at Iowa because she actually got the ball back. Now that's where you take out Natasha Howard, who famously had that post up where CC is like begging for her for the ball, and you bring in an actual point guard in Raven Johnson, who that is what she did for 4 years at South Carolina. She was the distributor. I think for all the things she's underrated at, somehow as a point guard, her passing might be the most underrated aspect of her ability. I think that there's this like misconception that she was just setting up all these talented posts in South Carolina. And yes, she's a great post-up passer, and she will once again be throwing post-up entries to Aaliyah Boston. At the same time, she became like just a really good creator for other players by the end of her journey in South Carolina. So like that's a big part of why she's there in my mind, is to allow Caitlin to kind of play on and off the ball as well.
I mean, Kelsey can just let Caitlin play off the ball too. Like you can rotate between the two of them. So I realize Kelsey isn't like your traditional point guard, but she can like at least initiate some actions that allow Caitlin to not have to do everything all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't see that happen as much. Like as much as Kelsey has, maybe, yeah. Well, Kelsey has grown a lot as a playmaker. She's still more of your, like, I'm going to drive and I'm going to bring the defense to me and I'm going to dump it off to a big, which is obviously incredibly valuable. And she's actually become a really, really great nifty passer in that regard. She's still somebody that I think is thinking like, I'm a sicko. I'm going to score 25 points per game. And I would prefer that. Like, I actually just don't like, let's not turn Kelsey Mitchell into like a passer for Caitlin Clark. Like, I want her to be a ringer. Like, she, pun intended, she can continue doing what she's doing in that regard. Yeah. Is there anything else about this matchup that intrigues you?
I mean, I feel like we've really gotten into it, but you know, we've had all of these new coaches come into the W over the last couple of years, and Jose Fernandez is the latest from the college line. He's just incredibly highly regarded, you know, like the kind of thing a casual fan wouldn't recognize from having just seen his bio, like, oh, he came from South Florida, mid-major school. But no, he is very, very highly regarded among his peers. And I'm admittedly, as someone who didn't watch a ton of South Florida when he was in college,
I can raise my hand on that too. So can literally everybody else. Yeah, it'll be.
What is his style of play here when he has this level of talent? You know, how is he going to try to work with Paige? What does he envision her as? Right? Like, is it more of that on and off? I just wonder like what this all looks like in his system.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. Paige has already compared him to Gino. I also do think that he came with the Gino endorsement as well.
The fact that they're buds absolutely helps.
It totally helps. I've also been really impressed by his training camp, which is like the most like preseason polycock ever. However, at the same time, I do think that there's been a structure, and he is very clear in what he wants from his players. Like, he wants Paige shooting more threes. He wants AZ letting it fly. He wants Lee Uiro improving her post defense. Like, those are all like, and rebounding a little bit. Like, those are all things that like, I don't think we always hear coaches like very straight up communicate, hey, this is what I need from you, at least like in a public way. And I think that from what I've heard from the player interviews as well, like there has been that structure and that clarity in terms of like, this is what we need from you. So I am optimistic, not even cautiously optimistic. I think he's going to be a pretty good coach. There's a lot of interesting coaches in this year though. One coach that I think can be a bit of a dark horse Coach of the Year candidate. I texted you about this, and you were kind of like, I don't know. But Sonia Rumman is someone who is certainly not like, I wouldn't give her like the top odds, but just watching them in the preseason, she has started to put in this system that empowers guards to do things that, from two players in particular, I have just not seen them do before. The first is Lexi Brown. And if you remember about a year ago, Lexi Brown said that she was working on her creation game. And I think a lot of people panned her for it. And now, fast forward a year later, Sonia Rumman wants pretty much all of her guards to be able to create off of the dribble. There have been moments in preseason where Lexi Brown has like asked for a clear out and been like, it's going to be me. This is like a career spot up shooter. And it has gone pretty well. And then you have Zaya Cook, who honestly looked like she was going to be out of the WNBA. I have not seen her play with this level of like confidence probably since she was in South Carolina. Then you add in, I think she can do some really interesting things with Dominique Malonga and Awa Pham, Seattle's positionless basketball style, her integrating NBA concepts into the game. I'm not saying she's going to win Coach of the Year. I'm just saying she's a very interesting coach that I have my eye on. And if at some point Seattle, which I don't expect to win a lot of games, if they rattle off like a 4 or 5 game win streak, I'm going to start a conversation.
I'm going to tell you with 100% certainty that developmental coaches do not win Coach of the Year. You got to make the playoffs.
It's a damn shame.
Unfortunately,
it's a damn shame.
Just a fact about the voting process here, which I think is a mistake. You know, I loved what Sydney Johnson did last year, for example, in Washington. No love in the Coach of the Year situation, despite developing 2 rookie All-Stars. So I don't disagree with what you've seen out of Seattle during the preseason. Again, God, I hate to put so many caveats on this preseason basketball, but I just can't equate that with the Coach of the Year conversation. I just don't think it's going to happen. I feel like this award is Jose's to lose, honestly. Like if Dallas just does like a 4 or 5 seed, you know, like he's going to get the lion's share of the credit for that in terms of the Coach of the Year vote. It's just always like whoever exceeds expectations, right? So Carlos Mesco had his year last year. Natalie Nakase had her year last year. You know, this could be if like Chicago, you know, gets into the 6th, 7th playoff spot, like all of a sudden we're talking about Tyler Marsh, right? I'm just telling you, this is what's going to happen.
I know.
I'm not saying this is how we should view the best coaches in the WNBA.
I forgot my Chicago size square jar at home. And actually, also none of my Chicago ire it should be going against Tyler. That was just habitual of me. That was, if they do get a 6th seed, he should absolutely be in the conversation. You're right. Well, thank you for walking me back a little bit on the preseason stuff. I do think I'm going a little bit crazy. I think I need regular season basketball games to start soon.
Don't we all?
Yeah. Here's a more kind of just, you know, down the middle pick for potential Coach of the Year. Another first-year coach, but Chris DeMarco coaching the New York Liberty. I think that there's obviously a lot of eyes on him. There's going to be a lot of pressure because the Liberty fired Sandy Brandello, who had won a title with them the year before. And
what a weird situation, first of all, for Sandy Brandello and that coaching staff to walk into, where you don't even really get an extension after winning a title. You're like lame ducks coming off a championship.
Lame duck after the title is tough. I would be calling my agent.
Frank Vogel, man. You get it.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I would be on the phone with my agent if I was a lame duck.
I like the situation she ended up in. But yes, let's get back to Chris DeMarco. Liberty, very talented.
Yeah.
You think he has a chance here to win Coach of the Year?
If they end up, look, if they live up to their expectations, because like I said, this is always the on paper team. If he can actually get them to live up to their potential, especially on the offensive end, which I think there's a legitimate shot for him to do that, then yeah, I think they're going to end up winning a ton of games. They could be the number 1 seed. They are currently the title favorites.
As we learned on this podcast.
As we learned on this podcast. And just to reiterate, that is a little insane. However, this is a world. I think that there's a lot of interesting things that he can do with the Liberty offense that I think the Liberty front office was left wanting with Sandy Brondello, right? Like there's a lot of potential for versatility here. And I think it's an interesting, like sort of larger WNBA conversation where the league has gotten more versatile, right? Like players have gotten more versatile. You do have players that are starting to step out of their positional roles. However, it is not like supercharged yet. And Nate Tibbetts is a perfect example of a coach who I think took advantage of that last year, where Alyssa Thomas has always been one of the most, modern, unique sort of WNBA curios, a player who, handles the ball and is a point guard while, kind of having the dimensions of a power forward. And she did that in Connecticut with Stephanie White. However, there was still some sort of like conformity to positional convention within that, right? Like, and then Phoenix just decides, oh, you are a primary ball handler. We are going to like just run pick and roll through you in a way that we've never done before. As a result of that, Alyssa Thomas basically has like a career year, like a renaissance at age 32 or 33. And I think Jonquel Jones could potentially be in a similar category there. She is initiating pick and roll more. She has always been a player. Look, she's tall, she has good touch, she's very skilled. You can throw her in the post. She's not Alyssa Thomas in that sense, in that you don't want to put her in the post at all. Like you want her to do some of that, but she's not really an isolation player. And I think that she's kind of always gotten a little bit lost in this New York team where, because she's not necessarily the player that you like have to throw the ball down in the middle to, but she is a center, and yes, she's a playmaker, and she's a 3-point shooter. She's had to just like get in where she fits in. And even while doing that, she's like been a finals MVP and at times been their best player. This time around, I think she's actually going to be like highlighted. And that's just the start. There's a lot of different things that Liberty could do.
Yeah, I think JJ is the right place to start here because Stewie, just no matter what system you run, Breanna Stewart is going to find a way to excel. She is like one of the most malleable players I've ever seen in the WNBA, and just consistent. Her floor is about as high as any player I've ever watched. The ball's going to be in Sabrina's hands a good amount of time. Like, let's be clear, Chris DeMarco is a Sabrina Ionescu hire. So like she is going to be prioritized in this situation. JJ
I just
was the kind of player
just a second
who,
there.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a perception that he is a Sabrina Ionescu hire. And yes, I do think that there's a connection there. She's a Bay Area person. She has a lot of connections with the Warriors. She shares a trainer with Steph Curry. I definitely, and you just simply do not approve on a Chris DeMarco hire without Sabrina Ionescu being, involved. At the same time, I think the Buddy Hield Jonquel Jones connection was also a big part of Chris DeMarco joining the Liberty. And also, I think something that was taken into account because out of all the free agents that you saw leaving, Jonquel probably had the highest chance of leaving. So I do think that they both had like I don't know what where the pie chart is on who had the most say, but I definitely think that both of them were like very much on board. Yes.
Totally.
Yeah, go ahead.
I look at the 2025 season with New York, and they sort of reimagine their offense at the start of the season, more 5 out, and you can understand the logic behind it because when you have a center like Jonquel Jones, 6'6", but can also shoot the lights out of the ball, it makes sense to optimize your spacing. And for whatever reason, like Jonquel just felt so lost in that role, like didn't know where her touches were coming, kind of floating from 3-point line to 3-point line in that offense. And I think getting her on board right away is like the most important thing Chris DeMarco can do because like the gap between Jonquel's floor and ceiling, like I talk about Stewie have like the highest floor in the WNBA. The gap between Jonquel's floor and ceiling is probably bigger than any player in the WNBA. Like it can go in a lot of different directions for JJ. When she is invested, she is invested. And when she's not, like you're just struggling to wonder why this incredibly physically talented player is just not making an impact on the court. So her being involved in the offense, her having clearly defined roles and understanding like where her shots are going to come from, where she's going to get her touches is far and away like what Chris DeMarco has to figure out. And I'm glad you mentioned the Bahamas connection again, because like he did serve as the head coach for the men's national team. Right. But yeah, that's to me, like Chris DeMarco's number one role is like, I understand how Sabrina's going to get used. I understand how Stewie's going to get used. Satu is new. Like, I understand she's incredibly talented, like one of the only all-stars to change teams this offseason, but like she is not as high on the pecking order to me as Jonquel Jones because of what Jonquel has done for this franchise already, like the finals MVP and their lone championship, right? So if Chris DeMarco figures out how to use JJ
Mhm.
and they win a lot of regular season games, then yeah, I think that Coach of the Year case makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I think he can do is protect Sabrina on defense. And Sabrina has improved a lot as a defender, so I don't want to make this like as far as
Totally.
a weak link
she has,
goes, like she's improved so much, especially as an isolation defender. She has gotten stronger. She's even stronger this year. You can see that in her screen setting. She is setting screens in this offense. And I mention that because that is basically her doing Steph Curry things. And this is a guy who coached Steph Curry. This is a guy who was also he was a bigger part of the defense than he was the offense. And I think one of the things that the Liberty were looking for was a tactical coach who, when teams decide to target Sabrina like the Mercury did in the postseason last year, it can't just be like, okay, now we're done, right? And this is a guy who figured out different ways to protect Steph Curry throughout the course of 4 different title runs, whether that was scram switching, whether that was, just playing junky zone defenses, whether that was just getting him away from the ball. There were so many different things that they did in order to not make it so that every possession down the floor could be, hey, let's just switch a big, let's switch a Satu, let's switch an Alyssa Thomas onto Sabrina Ionescu, and then that's it. We have no solutions after that. And I think that's potentially going to be a big part of it too. So yeah, he's definitely up there for me. Steph White is another person who just has to be up there, especially if this Caitlin on ball experiment works. Becky, we talked about. Carl Smesko. It's a wild field. Lynn Roberts, Sabrina.
I think this is our main point of disagreement at the start of the regular season.
I think it is. So listeners, Sabrina and I feel very differently about the Los Angeles Sparks and our level of optimism about their season and how we feel about the trades that they made. You have heard plenty from me though. So Sabrina, I'll let you go here.
Yeah, I like the Sparks starting lineup quite a bit. I think their bench could be the worst in the WNBA. I am terrified of what I've seen out of Cameron Brink in the preseason. I don't think they know what they're doing with her on offense. I don't think Lynn is really involving her on the offensive end. The Portland preseason game was shocking, to be clear. And beyond those 5, Kelsey Plum, Ariel Atkins, Ray Burrell, Neko Gumake, Diarca Hamby, I think it's going to be can go up against pretty much any starting lineup in the W, although I am a little concerned about the size in that front court, because neither NECA nor D is really a 5 in terms of rim protection. But once you hit that bench, I mean, you're relying on rookies, Tania Latson, Chance Gray, Jiyun Park is probably going to be part of this team. Cameron Brink is the only real rim protector, and she needs to be insane defensively to make up for the fact that, again, they're just not using her on offense. And either that's pick and popping or figuring out how to use her as a roller, because the screen setting just isn't working that well. I have concerns about the overall depth here, and it's not an 82 game season, but 44 games is a lot of games, and you got to get through them. And that means Erica Wheeler is the only bench player who I know I'm getting out of her in Los Angeles. And that's just concerning. I think you need a deeper team to really succeed in the WNBA right now, especially with expansion. More and more teams are going to miss the playoffs. So, I have some concerns about the upside of this Sparks team.
Okay, valid. I do think that Cam Brink is definitely the biggest X factor, and that is, to your point, scary, especially in a less physical play allowed refereeing world where she was already kind of struggling with staying on the court. That's sort of been the story of her career thus far. I also just think it's a lot of pressure to put on a player to have them be your sort of primary rim protector, coming off of an ACL tear and only being in her second year or her third year. But really, she's functionally only played, I think,
a year of basketball.
Right? A little less, I think, even. So
yeah, only about 34 games.
Yeah.
I think.
So totally heard. Get it. I think while I have concerns about the team, while I think on paper I am not a proponent for giving away young players to bring in stars to try to accelerate a title run. I just find myself understanding why they did it. And I think that my biggest thing is they brought the right people in. The Ariel Atkins for Rickea Jackson trade is one that the more I think about it, the more okay I am with it. And it seems like the more okay Rickea herself is. I think we've now since found out that it's something that she kind of wanted as well. And the Sparks worked with her to get her to Chicago, because as much as she had started to integrate herself into a Lynn Roberts offense that emphasizes 3-and-D, she is somebody who wants to dominate that sort of 8 to 14, 15 feet area of the rim that Lynn Roberts is not necessarily the biggest fan of. Now she's going to have to become a bigger fan with Nneka Ogwumike in the picture.
But even Nneka stretched her game out a lot when she was in Seattle.
Yeah, for sure. She's certainly not the same Nneka who played with the Sparks years ago. But on that point, I think bringing in Nneka shores up your defense. I can't remember the last time a Nneka Ogwumike team missed the playoffs and she was healthy. I think it was really only those Derek Fisher teams.
2023, I mean.
Well, Derek Fisher.
Not Derek Fisher, Kurt Miller.
Kurt Miller, okay. Oh, right, yeah, that was a Kurt. But it was with the stink of all of that. I think, but that's really it. Every other year she's made the playoffs. Since being in her second or third year, I think she just gives you a floor because of. I just think she's one of the most versatile players that we have in the league. She's a great defender. And I think she's kind of an underrated player. She should be a dark horse MVP candidate. She's she should be kind of every year. She should be in that conversation, and she kind of never is. And I think Ariel Atkins is kind of in the same ilk where it's two players that can do a lot of good things on the court that we don't necessarily talk about in the way that maybe we talk about some of their contemporaries. I think Atkins in particular just shores up their defense so much, and I think that she's going to have a bounce back year because
the defensive improvement from Azurá Stevens and Rickea Jackson to Ariel Atkins and Nneka Ogwumike is
it's
night and day.
It's incredible.
Incalculable.
It is incredible. It is incredible. I guess the other question I have too when we talk about depth is, this is going to be an interesting question for the WNBA at large this season, because now we have 2 new expansion teams. We have developmental roster spots. I think last year, if you didn't have depth, if you had smart, interleague personnel scouting, you could find players on the waiver wire to get some depth. You know what I mean? And I don't know if those opportunities are going to be there. And I am similarly like you. I'm very concerned. I'm more concerned about their front court depth. I think I feel pretty good about their backcourt. I know some people disagree, but I think Kelsey Plum, Ariel Atkins, Ray Burrell, Erica Wheeler, and then maybe one of Chance Gray or Tania Latson if they hit. I'm really I'm good with that. But the front court, it's certainly a problem.
There's no real wing depth either.
Yeah, I guess they'll probably just go with a lot of
Atkins will be your backup 3.
Yeah, Atkins. I think they played Burrell at the 3 sometimes last year.
Well, she'll be starting at the 3.
Right. Yeah, and then they'll probably play Hamby at the 3 as well for when they play Hamby and Nneka together with Cam.
And again, that is a spacing challenge lineup.
It is a challenge. Look, yeah. You're making points. I feel good. I feel good about it. I feel good about it.
You know what? I'm wearing yellow. I live in LA. I would love to have some sunny optimism about the Sparks. It's just I'm not there yet.
You're just not there yet.
Yeah.
On the note of Cam Brink, I wanted to talk a little bit about the new emphasis on reffing being less physical. Nafisa Collier talked about this in an interview with NPR in the morning edition. It was certainly
really illuminating interview, I must say.
Very illuminating interview. We'll certainly get into all of that. Sheo Reeve talked about it. Other players have talked about it. Clea Copper has talked about it. Satu Sabli has talked about it. There was a sense last year that the physicality of the game and the refs' ability to control the game had just gotten out of control. And I agree. There were way too many dust-ups last year. You just simply cannot have a league that, going into its 30th year, you kind of this is your glow-up year. The league simply cannot be defined by these plays anymore. That just can't be what it's going viral for. At the same time, there's been some pushback too that defense should still be a part of the league, and I tend to agree with that. I think that the way that reffing should go is like there should be it should be like a vast ecosystem of different sort of players that should get to exist, right? Like I think like one player I'll be watching is Alyssa Thomas. How much is she impacted by this? Because I like a WNBA where a player like Alyssa Thomas can thrive. I like a WNBA where a player like Cody McMahon, after she comes back from her injury, can thrive. So to me, it's going to be all about finding that balance. But I do think that there are definitely some players who are losers here. Like there's like the Alyssa Thomas, there's Cody McMahon, there's Cameron Brink, and there are also some, actually, you know what? Sneakily, Ariel Atkins is kind of a loser here because she be fouling on the perimeter. She is hand checking out on the perimeter like like it is her day job. So there's some sneaky. It'd be funny if my Sparks argument just completely falls apart on the new reffing
because
rules.
they get called for 35 fouls.
Although Kelsey Plum is going to be a huge winner at the same time because she is getting hand checked all the time as well. So it'd be interesting. But
I find it
good.
Like we've seen obviously a lot of NBA influence seep into the WNBA in recent years, whether that's through the coaching hires or some of the general manager hires, and now all of the new teams coming in are under NBA ownership. And I kind of wonder if they're trying to standardize the officiating processes too, because for a long time, the WNBA has been a more physical league than the NBA. There's more contact that's allowed. And I do think it crossed a bad point last year. You know, like when the most notable play of the postseason, other than Asia Wilson's shot, is Nafisa Collier, like breaking both of her ankles.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how you want your product to be advertised, right? I think like there was a tipping point, but I also just don't believe that, like, there were preseason games not on national TV that took 2.5 hours. This is a 40-minute game.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I think the onus is also on the players to adjust to how the game is being officiated because, you know, clearly there have been significant changes between the type of contact that is allowed now versus last season. But I don't necessarily think that we need to reach like an NBA regular season level of style of play. You know, like I think it is okay that this is a more physical league. I don't think that's a problem. I think there's some middle ground that needs to be achieved between what happened last year and like what men's basketball looks like. So I would just hope that like with all of the cross-pollination between these two leagues that like we're not just getting the exact same style of officiating because frankly, I just don't think that the WNBA needs that during the regular season.
No, I completely agree with you. My hope is that the preseason, like refereeing is sort of a just an attempt to get players to recognize that things are changing. Like I hope that they're just overcorrecting a little bit in games that don't matter, so that by the time they do, everybody's kind of with the program. Totally. I also think if we're going to cross-pollinate, let's cross-pollinate in the quality of referees as well, right? Like that's a big part of this. The NBA gets the best referees. I agree. And I think one thing that's interesting too is whether you're going to have this conversation in the lens of like, do you want the gameplay to be better? Which, yes, absolutely. Do you want the refereeing to be better to prevent injuries? That too. But I think it gets complicated when you start talking about that. There are certain injuries that are preventable. Like the Phee injury, I don't think happens if the game is being officiated differently. Certain concussions, Satu Sab, like there's certain things that don't happen, especially down low and on drives that are, you know, kind of like that are issues that players get injured over. I feel like
this is like a constant criticism that I have with basketball in general. Like the amount of contact allowed in the paint versus on the perimeter is just wildly disparate. And like we need to figure out how to address that first.
Yeah, and I think the WNBA is over-indexed on that to a wild degree. Like things are allowed in the paint that are just like, how? Like it just stops being, it stops feeling like basketball at a certain point. But the other thing is like, look, these players got paid. Now, if you are anybody that has a financial interest in this league, this is like the players have gone, I don't like to refer to players as assets, but you want to protect your asset now. If you're paying somebody $1 million, suddenly you care a lot more about how hard they get hit on a screen. Like, or about like their landing space. Like that's just human psychology. That's just how it goes. Like there are things you put in a safety deposit box and there are things you don't.
Have you heard about the status of this officiating committee that was being formed in response to Nafisa Collier's injury last year?
I personally
did see a release about 5 new officials being hired, all with G League experience.
Well, all WNBA refs have to go through the G League, which is another thing that doesn't really make a lot of sense. That that kind of destroys the pipeline. But if anybody's interested in
Another
that,
conversation.
I can definitely dig into that at some point. The other thing that Phee talked about that is breaking the internet today. So Napheesa Collier was asked about her decision to only sign a 1-year contract with the Minnesota Lynx. And look, her response was very down the middle. It certainly wasn't something that inspired confidence. And I think that it's something that has sort of gotten I think now we're a little bit off to the races with conversations that were starting to percolate a little bit behind the scenes. But all right, let's play the clip first, and then we can get to it.
Why did you sign for just 1 year?
I'm so focused on the now. Like, I just came off 2 ankle surgeries. I'm trying to get back on the court. And, like, this was such a whirlwind. We had, with the CBA going on and all these things, like, everything was happening so fast. I just wanted to be able to focus on getting on the court with my team this year and winning a championship.
But you are the team leader. They would have given you 3 years, 5 years, whatever you wanted.
Mm-hmm. Again, I think just, like, not looking too far into the future in that way, and that I want to be able to stay focused on my recovery. I've never had surgery before like this. I've never had to come back from injury. This is new for me, and I wanted to be able to give it my all and focus on the now.
I don't know. We haven't talked about this offline at all. I don't know what you've been hearing. This has been percolating for a little while now. There have been conversations. The Phee leaving Minnesota conversation has been quietly loud and quietly quiet at different points in probably like the last over a year or so. There could be many reasons for that potentially happening. I think that the most interesting thing to me is a new CBA context and a new ownership group in Minnesota. I do think that the ownership group has made some personnel decisions that players have not agreed with. I think that if you're Phee, you're probably thinking about your marketability in Minnesota versus another franchise. This is also not something that's ever been lost on Cheryl Reeve, who has simultaneously advocated for Minnesota getting more media coverage while sort of chastising the media itself for not covering Minnesota more. The other thing, too, is that I don't know what Minnesota's advantage is as a destination if they are not the highest functioning franchise in the WNBA anymore. You know, that's always been their advantage, but they've never really been a free agency destination. They are a place that builds through the draft, and that everybody applauds. But even we saw it this offseason, right? Gabby Williams had a choice between going to Minnesota to play with Phee. She also could have gone to Phoenix. She chose to go to the Golden State Valkyries. She
does have a lot of personal connections to the Valkyries and the Bay Area, and like the French national team basically forms half of Golden State's roster. So, you know, lots of decision-making factors there.
No, for sure. For sure. But I think Cheryl put it best today. I think Phee is going to be a free agent for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think 15 teams are going to be vying for her services. And I think the Lynx will be one of them. And I think other teams, actually, particularly the Valkyries, who, if you look at some of their decision making, I think one of the best ways to make sense of it all is maybe they thought that they were going to be able to get ahead of what will probably be a sweepstakes for Phee and try to trade for her this summer. Like they say that they,
you know, what would have been a nice trade asset for Napheesa Collier?
Flau'jae Johnson.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think so. Golden State, they waived Marta Suarez after, you know, trading Flau'jae for her, which obviously raised a lot of questions.
And a 2028 second round pick.
And a 2028. Thank you. You're always keeping me. You're always holding me accountable. They end up waiving her. Ohema Nyanen talks about it on Media Day and says that the trade was made to maintain cap flexibility. They still have a whole bunch of cap space and a Napheesa Collier-shaped hole in their roster. And
you don't think Janelle Salon is a power forward of the future?
I think Janelle Salon is the small forward of the future. I think she's going to be a 3-level scorer on the wing.
Cool.
I think she can very
I see
much
it.
fit into
I see it, yeah.
into that kind of roster. But the reason I talk about the roster is because I was thinking about before free agency started, I was thinking about who would be the perfect point guard that was available to pair with Napheesa Collier. And the player that kept coming into my mind that I knew they weren't going to be able to get because she was restricted was Veronica Burton. So the basketball fit is there. Gabby Williams, who she tried to recruit and is her really good friend, is there. This is a franchise that's owned by Joe Lacob. They are going to swing for the fences. They were the team that, this is the Kevin Durant team, right? Like, they're going to try to make plays like that. And I think that they were, despite the kerfuffle of this offseason, still going to be up there and very highly positioned as a team that could potentially be in the sweepstakes for her. They also just waived Kate Martin, who shares an agent with Napheesa Collier, which is interesting because why would you waive Marta Suarez if you're going to waive Kate Martin anyways is certainly a question I have if I'm a Valkyries fan. But also, I wonder if that's a bit of like hey, Excel, we haven't really we don't really necessarily have a role for your girl. Maybe we'll set her free as a bit of like just a way to get getting good with you guys. I know you don't want to engage with this.
No, there's just like so much going on. Like we went from Minnesota to Golden State to, agency conspiracy theories. The one thing I do want to hit on, I think the change in ownership in Minnesota, cannot be overstated. For as much as I think the Minnesota Timberwolves love having Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez around, and wow, has that franchise taken a real step up in the last couple of years? I don't think A-Rod at WNBA Board of Governors meetings is going to go for quite as well. So I am intrigued by how all of that plays out on the Lynx side. I still think playing for Cheryl Reeve is a real draw. And I do think, you mentioned they developed through the draft. They've actually done very well in free agency, not at the superstar level, but like at the all-star level, bringing in Kayla McBride. Courtney Williams had been an all-star before she joined Minnesota, although her value was a little bit depressed because she was playing for Chicago. But the team that they built that went to the finals a lot of it came through free agency other than Napheesa Collier. And I do think playing with Olivia Miles is going to be a draw. Like if you have a superstar in Phee, like that's going to be a draw. But obviously like keeping her is the main part of it. And I think it is interesting that like she and Jackie Young chose to maintain their flexibility where they can't be cored next year because of the new CBA rules. Like they actually can really have unrestricted free agency for the first time in their careers. And maybe you just want like the freedom, it's not even so much like I need to move. It's just like, get that stupid core off my contract. Like I just want, to have a choice in the matter. But yeah, I think it'd be very easy for Phee to just say like, I love Minnesota. It's been a big part of my career. Like I would love to have a future here. And she didn't say any of that. So, something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think the ownership piece matters. For all of Glenn Taylor's faults as an NBA owner, he was always a champion of the Minnesota Lynx.
Totally.
And if you're Phee, maybe you're just trying to be a little bit of an operator here of, hey, like A-Rod, Mark Lowry, it feels like we've become an afterthought for you. And I do have freedom and flexibility now.
Yeah.
I just think this is fun because like, we've been able to have conversations like this about the WNBA very often. Like, players really had this level of like freedom and maneuverability and like leverage to be able to say.
And we've seen what the players are able to accomplish with some leverage.
Hey, exactly. Specifically Napheesa Collier. So I think it's going to be something to watch. I'm not saying like she's leaving or anything like that. No. Look, you have Cheryl Reeve, you have Olivia Miles, you have this season. You have a year to get your shit together, listen to your superstar, give her some of what she wants. If she comes back this season, go real heavy on the MVP push, show her that she can be just as big of a star in Minnesota as she can anywhere else. And hey, look, she's on NPR. She's on the Good Morning America circuit. She's doing podcasts with Kamala Harris, right? Like, but is there an extra level? And so much of that for her has been self-created as well. So, and hey, look, that's also on the media as well. We got to care about the small market teams as much as we care about the other ones. But look, we're entering pretty interesting, and I don't want to say uncharted territory for the WNBA. There's a Candace Parker deal that certainly exists, but this is a new era. This is a bit of a new era. Yeah. Jackie Yang was a good name check as well. I do think it'll be very interesting to see what she does next year as well. Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to get into before I let you go?
Let's see. I made all of my preseason predictions at The Athletic and on our podcast. So if you're in the mood for more women's basketball content, listen to that one. But yeah, I think we've, hashed out our major disagreements here. Mm-hmm. I guess just last thing, I feel like we've really hyped up Olivia Miles. She's your rookie of the year pick, right?
Maybe?
Okay. Maybe. I'm going to be honest, I didn't listen to Monday's show because I didn't want any Devil Wears Prada 2 spoilers. So if it came up on that episode,
no, we didn't talk about it on Monday's show. So I think that Olivia Miles might go through some growing pains early this season. I think she will probably get targeted on the defensive end. She's also going to be sharing point guard duties with Courtney Williams. And while she's shown an ability to do that with Hannah Hidalgo.
Did she?
Well, I don't think their problem
I don't need to rehash the Miles Hidalgo
was on the court. I don't think their on-court offensive chemistry was necessarily the issue. But I think Miles wanted to be the one, right? Mm-hmm. Be the one and be playing the one. And we'll see how that part of it shakes out in Minnesota. I also think that, because they're a team that's like trying to make the playoffs, the leash might be a little bit shorter on her as well. Whereas there are some other rookies that are just going to have way more of just like a sort of like empty the clip, I can do whatever I want sort of season. I think Georgia Amor is I'm going to plant my Georgia Amor flag here.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I really think that she can do it. Watching her run an offense is absolutely beautiful, and she has done it beautifully in the preseason. She was a great pick for the Mystics last year, and then she tore her ACL. Her chemistry with Lauren Betts has been fantastic. Lauren Betts is playing with now the best pick and roll creator that she's ever played with. That makes her a candidate in my mind too.
Yeah. And if I were to pick a Mystic, I would go with Betts.
Either one of them.
I like the Amor pick, yeah.
Yeah, either one. I think like the it could be like a co-rookie of the year. Do you pick Sonia Citron or Kiki Iriafin? And
then cannibalizing the vote did not help their cause last year.
And then they split the vote and it goes to like Awa Pham. Well, also Awa Pham and Flau'jae Johnson could also cannibalize each other as well, which then actually just brings us back to Olivia Miles. Olivia Miles is going to be the only middle. Or AZ Fudd as well.
Number one picks, spoiler alert, usually win this award.
Yes, I do. I do think that this year is going to be way more of a horse race, though. Kind of like the way that the WNBA draft was, where there was no consensus number one pick. I don't think that there is a consensus rookie.
I feel like ESPN was telling us all year that it was going to be AZ Fudd, and we just refused to listen.
I had my reasons.
I was among the people who refused to listen.
I was very much refusing to listen, and then was pretty surprised, to be honest. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Let's do a quick, since the Valkyries are playing the Storm, I have like 5 most improved players candidates on there. Well, Ileana Rupier is no longer on there because congratulations to her. She is pregnant, but she was going to be one of my candidates. Janelle Salon, most improved candidate for me for sure. I think she has an opportunity to evolve into a 3-level scorer this year. Gabby Williams, like really being given the keys to an offense, hopefully getting more shots at the rim than she got in Seattle and some more touches too. I talked about Lexi Brown and Zaya Cook. None of these players are the players that like the odds makers think are going to win most improved player of the year. However, that award is a total crapshoot, so I'm just going to go with who I think is going to have a great season. Jade Melbourne is another player that I think we should be looking at as well. Do you have anybody?
You're really over-indexing on the Seattle Storm, Seerat.
There are 2 teams. Look, I'm a Sonia Rumman truther, okay?
I don't give most improved a lot of thought before the season because if I knew who was going to improve, then
why would you watch?
Probably just pick them for all W at this point.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I just say, I look at the odds for it, and it's like Dominique Malonga. Well, she's a second-year player, like coming out of her.
Didn't you just say Janelle Salon?
It's different. She came in halfway through the year. She wasn't like the number 2 pick. Whatever. You're just, you know what? You're absolutely right. You're poking holes in a lot of my logic today, and it's gonna make me crash out.
The thing with
you're
most
not
improved
wrong.
is I would just love to not have the conversation of like, oh, somebody jumped from all-star to MVP candidate, like they can't be most improved. I think that's a far more impressive improvement than
incredible.
Yeah.
Shout out to Alicia Gray.
Out of the league to, fringe players. So I think there are all kinds of improvements, and I don't want to be shaded for preferring one kind of improvement to another.
We should just have like different categories for the most improved player of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like we should do the player who's like, it looked like they were out of the league. We should do like the role player that becomes an all-star, and then we should do the all-star that becomes like an MVP candidate, because they're all impressive and they're impressive in different ways, but there are also like kind of functions of very different things happening. All right. Okay. I'll let you get out of here. Read Sabrina's piece on Asia Wilson that came out today. It was about how she re-signed with the Aces, and that sort of set the table for them to be able to run this team back. Read her coverage on, you guys did Coach of the Year. You guys did Rookie of the Year. I'm assuming MVP is probably coming out at some point.
WNBA picks.
Yeah.
Those are out too.
Yeah. Okay.
And then on Friday, like some random predictions are coming out.
Ooh, okay. A little teaser, a little spoiler. I like it.
Teaser.
Beautiful. Okay. I'll plug myself briefly here as well. We did power rankings for all 5 teams across 3 different podcasts. It was 5 podcasts per team, so we got a chance to really dig into everybody. We talked a little bit more Rookie of the Year with Steve Jones. And I think that's it. I think that's all I'll plug. Oh, the Devil Wears Prada preview. If you hadn't seen it by the time we put it out, completely understood. But we did a really fun WNBA preview that was in the theme of Devil Wears Prada. Me and Mayatri wore sunglasses for the entire episode, and we basically pitched each other different predictions, and it was a lot of fun. There aren't too many spoilers really until like the end of the pod where we actually talk about the movie itself. We spoil a little bit at the start, but we spoil kind of like the first sort of like the introduction to the first act. So it's like not really a spoiler in my mind, at least. However, if you are a purist, then, you know, I'd probably stay away from it. All right. We will see you guys soon after these games start so I can stop obsessing over preseason basketball. And yeah, we'll be back on Monday. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Sabrina Merchant. Thank you to Steve Ahlman. Thank you to Jamie. Thank you to Sarah Reddy, who helped us with some technical issues before the podcast began. Thank you to Ben Cruz, Connor Nevins, and Alexa Huval for additional production assistance. And we will be back on Monday.